I'm just not sure the Kyler Murray is big enough. This is Tom Brady. He's not just going to retire. Whitey, big fan of the show. I've got Brian Murphy to my left, making sure everything's smooth, crispy, buttery. James Harden is systematically ruining the game of basketball. The most overrated player. And there you are, the Chicago Bears with a cheapest defense. And I'm sure dancing with the stars is happy to have Antonio back. If you thought you were going to get Zion, that's your bad.
And now listening to Open Season, your host, Ilya.
Good evening, and welcome to Open Season. It's a Thanksgiving edition, and we are thankful for the barn burner that was the Patriots-Jets this weekend. Woo! We'll be talking about the New York Football Jets, the Giants, the Lions. Are they poised for a victory this Thanksgiving? They're 4-6. They're in second place, so they're excited in Detroit for that. Ripped off 3 straight wins. Looking pretty good on offense. The Vikings got shellacked by the Cowboys. Goes back to earth real quick for those guys after a big win against the Bills last week. And the Raiders were able to pull off a victory in that one, but it's just been ugly for those two teams all season. The Chiefs and Chargers, Patrick Mahomes, you can't leave any time left for that guy on the clock. And we are on the clock now as we bring in Frankie, as always. We're going to talk about the Pats-Jets. That was a game that ended 3-10. I mean, the scoring, the Jets, you've seen the memes this week. They put up like 2.7 yards per play. And that game, fittingly enough, Bill Belichick was excited after that one, winning on defense and special teams. But do not punt the ball to Marcus Jones. He ends up returning that ball 84 yards for a touchdown, and the Patriots get themselves a win. But Frankie, in the aftermath of that game, man, that was a tough one to watch. That was like watching paint dry, huh?
Listen, that game was very exciting. I got to watch the whole game before I went into work. I went in, I talked to my boss. He records the game, so I knew he hadn't seen it. I looked right at him. He said, "Don't say anything." And I let 3 seconds of awkward silence pass. I hope you like punts, because there's really nothing else. There's punts, and then one exciting play that happens with 0 time left. It's a horrible game to watch. And I'm a fan of the AFC North, so I'm okay with 10-3 games. If it's the mid-2000s Bengals versus those Steelers, or those Ravens versus those Steelers, you can have a very exciting 10-3 game. That is not what this was. This was a boring 10-3 game. This was an inept 10-3 game. This, for the Jets, had the opportunity to be a big swing. You get the monkey of the Patriots off your back. You're in first outright. You either won and were in first, or lost and were in last, and they're in last. And that is the most Jets thing ever.
Yeah. No, it does seem to be like anytime there's any expectations for them that they drop the ball. Zach Wilson was 9-22 in that game. A nice 40% completion rate. But at the end of it, he still had a chance to win that game if they don't punt the ball to Marcus Jones. Definitely a boneheaded decision by Saleh.
Why did they not punt that ball out of bounds? They should have punted that ball into the stands as far away as possible.
Yeah.
What did we see from the Patriots all game that let them think, oh, we can't kick it back to their offense. We can't afford a touchback. Let's just kick it off and hope that what are they doing? What had they seen from this offense that let them think, oh, we should fear kicking the ball out of bounds and making them go 50, 60 yards? Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
You go back to even the way they called timeouts down the stretch, where Saleh calls one probably when he doesn't need to, and then they lose 2 yards. Bill calls one. So you've had 2 timeouts in the last 3 plays, and Robert Saleh still allows the ball to be punted in play. That should have been impossible. That shouldn't even have been an option.
Yeah. And, that one, I mean, pretty much, I mean, the Jets are pretty much like the first team outside of the playoffs right now. That would have put them in pretty good position to, kind of have like a stranglehold. I think it was going to be something like if they won that game, I think they were going to have like an 84% chance to make the playoffs. I think losing that game puts them closer to like a 50. I mean, to your point, huge swing game for them. What do you think about their chances to right the ship, to kind of, I mean, it just seems like things are starting to spiral with Zach Wilson there, where you heard that after the game, he really wasn't taking much accountability for that loss, kind of walking around like, it wasn't the reason why he lost. Saleh won't commit to a starter. It feels like the Jets put together a great season so far, but are they running out of fumes with Zach Wilson as the starter, and where do they go from here? I mean, do they actually start Joe Flacco? That guy will get sacked 20 times in a game.
I'm not sure about that. And here's the other thing. They've actually got like a good little backup in Mike White. He's a good little functional. Any Pats fan who likes Zappy should like Mike White. Same guy.
I think there's one or two Zappy fans out there for sure.
Yeah, which makes no sense either, but spare me. The Jets looked at their most Jets this week, and that's what hurts. Because this is a brand new collection of talent. I really like that defense. Their defensive line has been good for years. Quinnen Williams, I don't think Lawson is still there, but Franklin Myers is. They've just got still Mosley is there. They've got a good front seven. Sauce Gardner's there. They've got talent all over that defense. And it's stunning to me that their offense is this inept. And it's really bad. And you want to go back to the intro, which I love. I'm just not sure Kyler Murray is big enough. I'm not sure Zach Wilson is big enough. And I know he's a bigger man than Kyler Murray, but he plays so much smaller. He looks like a little kid out there, and he looks very overwhelmed. I don't know why this kid was ever called the Mormon Mahomes. I can't believe that was his nickname in the draft. This kid is rubbish.
I think that's what happens when you play at BYU and you don't play anyone your senior year. You put up some pretty insane stats that really don't get checked that well. I mean, I think that guy had some decent measurables and, just like a decent draft. Like I remember his pro day, a lot of people were pretty enamored with some of the throws he made, but it's kind of like when we watched Yao Ming shoot against a chair, in some of his workouts. It's like when nobody's rushing after you and you can just huck the ball down the field. I feel like a lot of quarterbacks are going to look pretty good. I mean, didn't Kaepernick look pretty good during his workout a few years ago? I can't tell how good you are when nobody's guarding you. So I feel like he had the big arm and people are pretty enamored at that. But I mean, playing at BYU, I feel like he really didn't have a whole lot of competition his senior year.
I agree with everything you said. But to the pundits who have their own opinions, does he look like he's got that good an arm in the NFL? Because it looked great on highlights and in his pro day. I've not seen him in the NFL make one of those wow throws. I've seen it in the preseason. I've seen him throw crossbody 60 yards in the preseason. I've never seen it in the regular season. I just don't know where all this arm strength of his is coming from. This is back when Mayock, you called Ryan Mallett a first-round arm talent. Like, I'm just so sick of the hyperbole. The kid's not big enough, not smart enough, hasn't been productive worth a lick since he's been in the league. And he was the new Mahomes. Nobody's the new Mahomes. Mahomes is the first Mahomes.
Well, I think everybody is just praying that somebody is a Mahomes these days. But yeah, I feel like that was like he got the Mahomes name attached to him pretty easily. Just a couple big throws at BYU. I feel like you should have to do a little bit more than that to get called the next Mahomes. But nobody is Mahomes. We're not going to see that type of crap for a long time. I just feel like Mahomes.
Mahomes is what happens if Tom Brady early in his career had a Kurt Warner run. Like that's what Patrick Mahomes has done. He's come in, won MVP. That's what he's done. The guy is Frank Clark lining up Dee Ford lining up at the neutral zone away from going to 3 straight Super Bowls to start his goddamn career. Patrick Mahomes is the truth, and I'm sorry because I know we will talk about him later. But the idea that Zach Wilson, this kid, this MFer, and I actually mean that in a far more literal sense than hyperbolic, was never going to be the next Mahomes. He's just not that good.
Yeah. Oh God! So I mean, what did the Jets do? Do they start? Because why didn't Mike White start when Joe Flacco started earlier in the year? Was he hurt at that point in time? Because I don't think he was, right?
The Jets are dumb, and just like we've been talking about, Joe Flacco, even at his advanced age, looks wonderful in practice. Oh man, when he knows the snap count and isn't that no contact red jersey, and he's got guys that run 4-3, that guy is amazing. Joe Flacco to this day, Chuck and Duck Flacco. I've loved Flacco his whole career. He's a big dumb goof. He's skinnier Ben Roethlisberger. He is amazing to watch because you just don't know. It's going to be amazing. You don't know if it's going to be good for your team or the other team, but it's going to be amazing to watch from a spectator point of view.
Now, a lot of spectators are going to have their eyes, as we're talking about the New York teams, a lot of spectators going to have their eyes on the Lions this weekend. The Lions putting a beat down on the Giants this weekend, 31-18. The Giants, who are 7-3. A lot of people didn't see that one coming, but they're the bro coach has them drinking a lot of protein shakes over there. They got 3 straight moving. They're a pretty high octane offense here.
They're right off kneecaps, Billy. They're just
they're in second place. It's so funny. Like if you just look at the Detroit Lions, you look at them over the past year, it's just fourth. So when they're in second, I mean, they're riding high over there. It's funny. It's like the bro coach is like 9-30 over there, but it's like when you are actually getting second place. I mean, this guy's probably going to be up for a contract extension. So, long story short, is this going to be any type of game? With potentially Josh Allen maybe regressing a little bit over the past few weeks, with the Lions on the upswing, is this going to be any type of game on Thanksgiving between the Lions and the Bills?
So, I think real life PC principal Dan Campbell is. He's bro coach, as you said. He's PC principal. I love listening to him. I feel so bad for whatever billionaire has to pay this guy billions of dollars. It was an awful decision. This guy he's Jack Tony Robbins. There's no way this guy can lead 52 other grown men. But that being said, I don't think there's a chance in hell they beat the Bills. I'd love to see it. No chance in hell. And what I would like to say about the Lions, to their credit, they've got a fairly talented young core. And in this 3-game stretch, Aiden Hutchinson, second overall pick this year, has really come on strong. If Amon-Ra St. Brown and Aiden Hutchinson and some of these young guys can continue to be good, I mean, we know Goff is not the answer. We know Campbell is not the answer. But they've got kind of a young nucleus where if they can get a young quarterback and coach in there, this 3-game stretch can be indicative of a good season next year. They are not going to do anything this year, and they're still going to finish 4th. I'm so sorry.
It feels like Dan Campbell's pretty well liked over there. How long do you think he'll be the coach for the Lions? Because it feels like they just turn coaches over left and right, but people kind of like Dan Campbell. Is he there to stay? Because he's not going to get the wins, but he's got the likability.
All I know is Detroit is given more of a leash to Dan Campbell than they gave to Caldwell, and Caldwell actually had a resume. And I'm not a huge Caldwell fan, so don't get me wrong. But I
just feel like if you're Caldwell, if anyone has a case for racism in the NFL, if Caldwell were to kind of go there with like what he had done in those 3, I think, didn't he make the playoffs like 3 out of 4 years or something?
And I believe, and you'd have to double check this. I'm sorry, we didn't talk about this before the show. I'm almost positive he won a playoff game. The only playoff game they've won in like 30 years.
Yeah, so I feel like he got fired after like a 9-7 year. I mean, God, they would. I mean, what would they do right now for a 9-7 year?
If Dan
Can't say it on the air, Frank.
Throw a parade. If Dan Campbell went 9-7, they throw a GD parade because he's likable. But he has done nothing that is beneficial to their organizational integrity or success.
Well, the Minnesota Vikings took a pretty big hit to their organizational success this weekend. My God, what was that? A 40-3 loss?
Absolutely.
I was pretty surprised that the Cowboys were favored. Now, I guess it was just I could see that why they were favored, just in the sense of like, Kirk Cousins typically blows it in prime time, but it was like Vegas had them favored. I'm like, what is Vegas actually taking into account this game? I think they favored the Cowboys 1.5 points on the road. They were pretty close with that. So but they were completely right. And, the Vikings just kind of coming back down to earth. They really got a lot of pressure on Kirk Cousins. I think they sacked him 7 times in that game. I mean, they had him running for his life. That defense is pretty legit. And Trayvon Diggs was able to lock down Justin Jefferson.
I don't know that Trayvon Diggs was able to lock down Justin Jefferson.
He's dealing with an injury as well, but I mean, 3 catches, 35 yards or something like that after we just saw him, after what we've seen him do this year?
My thing is water finds its level and the quarterback's running for his life out there. I'm not sure that anytime you're actually getting pressure on the quarterback, that it is indicative of a good secondary performance. If you're running around getting a bunch of coverage sacks because you have Revis and Browner, or you know what I mean, or Sherman and Browner, or you have these guys, Quentin Jammer and Antonio Cromartie back in the day, if you've got these guys, sure, different story. But if you're just sacking with Micah Parsons lining up as an off linebacker, standing up off the line of scrimmage, I believe it's much easier to play corner. And it's not necessarily an indicator that he shut down Jefferson, that Kirk Cousins couldn't get the ball to him. Justin Jefferson just showed you the week before that if he has an average of less than 3 feet per separation on a play, he's going to catch the ball anyway. He can still go for 200 yards with the lowest amount of separation he's ever had in his career. So I don't think that's that. And again, I do think Trayvon Diggs is probably a top 10 corner in this game. So I don't want to shit on your comment because I do believe he's a great corner. I don't think you shut down a Jamar Chase or a Justin Jefferson. I don't think you shut down a Randy Moss or a T.O. I think wide receivers are mercurial. They can get in their own head so they can take themselves out of a game. But I don't think you shut down Justin Jefferson. I think Kirk Cousins.
Oh, well, what a good position he's in to be. So where you can't even shut him down. He's got to shut himself down. So even when he gets three catches for 35 yards, it's not that you were able to do something. It was that he shut himself down.
What's the hardest position to play in the league?
I don't know.
Cornerback. Not even close. Cornerback, and it's not even close. You are asked to cover the best receivers in all of pro sports for 3 seconds, which in 100-yard space is impossible. With the rules the way they are is impossible. So again, if you're Diggs, you might have a good game. I believe if Justin Jefferson is fully healthy and his quarterback has not been sacked an abundance of time and is not running for his life, I believe Diggs gets absolutely toasted. That's what I think. I think when Jalen Ramsey is the best corner in the game, and I still think he is, and he plays for Saxonville, he's got no stats because you can't touch him from space with a laser beam. But if he's in LA and they have no pass rush to speak of, he might get burned by the best receivers in the game because corner's just hard to freaking play. We have too many wide receivers who are too big, too strong, too fast nowadays. Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, DK Metcalf, these are not humans. These are androids. These are Megatrons. Calvin Johnson was like that. Imagine if the league had 6 Calvin Johnsons. That's what I feel like we have right now.
Well, Christ, I don't even know what I was about to say now. You took me off in that tangent about I was just trying to say that Trayvon Diggs played pretty decent defense on him.
And I was trying to say there is no decent defense you can play on Justin Jefferson. There is only get to his quarterback and make his quarterback shit his pants because Kirk Cousins isn't that good. Like, that's what it is. And again, this Minnesota offensive line, how about show some respect for yourselves? They got bullied out there. You've got Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson. You've got TJ. How do you give them no time? If you're this offensive line, you ought to be ashamed. The Cowboys were not blitzing a whole lot in this game. If you go back and look at it, they were not blitzing a whole lot. They got pressure anyways. As an offensive line, you have to stand up for yourself and your team and your quarterback.
I know they did get absolutely pushed around. It just feels like too. It's like anytime they're in you knew that they were going to lose this game after winning the Bills game too. It's like not one of those things where it was like the analytics pointed to it, but it's just like you knew that they were due for a course correction after that.
You once asked me after Kawhi got injured when we were doing the show at Seasons. You once asked me, what is Paul George's stat line going to be? And I said something like 11 points and he's going to shoot 4 of 18. He ended up shooting like 4 of 22 and had nearly that amount of points because you can bank on chokers choking. You can bank on it. The idea that they beat the Bills and then we're going to drop an absolute turd on the field is laughable. They were going to lose this game by 1,000 points in yards no matter what, because they don't know how to handle prosperity, and that quarterback's just not good enough. And also, terrible coach. I'm not saying keep Zimmer. Like much like Belichick, by the way, the game might have passed Zimmer by. They hired a moron. They have way too much talent on offense to ever.
I love how you get the. Love how you got Belichick in there somehow. You had to crowbar him.
Enough time and lotion, I can massage anything into an argument, Billy.
Well, so another line that was a little bit confusing going into the week, I guess, was just like, it was like the 49ers were getting like 10 points against the Cardinals. And it seemed like they definitely threw.
They knew about Kyler. Vegas is not making smaller casinos now, are they? Vegas knew Murray wasn't going to play.
Yeah, no, they did. But I mean, that was just absolute. That was an absolute beatdown as well.
The reason that was a beatdown is because you've got a team with a backup quarterback, and then you've got a super loaded team with a quarterback who has been genetically bred for winning. How well has he been genetically bred for winning? At 70% a clip to this day. Jimmy Garoppolo, with 132 passer rating, throws 4 touchdowns in one of the most efficient games you're going to see from a quarterback. So they didn't just win. They won behind their knight in shining armor, their Italian Aladdin, their Italian stallion, Jimmy James Garoppolo.
Yeah, well, he certainly does look like a knight in shining armor when you put him next to C.J. Beathard, Nick Mullins, Brian Hoyer, and these slew of court, and Trey Lance as well, who they try to purposely injure this year. So it's just like, if you were to put him next to those quarterbacks, he looks pretty good, doesn't he, Frank? I mean, he's probably going to win a decent. Go ahead, put your head down.
No, I was waiting for you. I would never want to cut you off.
Can't you put a number of quarterbacks in there to do what Jimmy Garoppolo does? This guy is 10-2 when he throws 0 touchdowns. I feel like this is a testament to the team that he's on, not that it's him.
Before we became Brady-centric in 2006, there was a lot of years where Tom Brady was 4-0 when he didn't throw a touchdown. And he had Willie McGinnis and Bill Belichick on the other side of the field, so nobody said anything. And then he eventually won a Super Bowl and became the greatest quarterback ever, so we just dismiss that the first 6 years of his career, he was not a statistical darling. Jimmy Garoppolo he's one Super Bowl away from cramming all of your skepticism right up your tailpipe. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, there's a lot of quarterbacks that are a Super Bowl away from doing that.
But none of them. None of those.
Friedman says Geno Smith or bust. I would take Geno Smith over Jimmy Garoppolo. What say you?
I know you're not actually asking me that. You're asking me, is the best story in the NFL this year better than this handsome, glorious winner of a quarterback?
Now, why does handsome always seem to eke its way into the evaluation?
Are you aware that in Merriam-Webster, there's actually something called the quarterback face? There's actually a statistical psychological principle that they've developed in the last 10 years where we find out that in elementary school, 90% of the time, the quarterback is the most attractive kid in school.
Look, so don't turn into a Warriors cheerleader on me and go all Goo Goo Gaga over.
My point is, this is now backed by science. Jimmy Garoppolo is that damn good because when you're that young as a quarterback and you're just that handsome and you have that good an arm, and he was athletic before he tore his ACL, making a stupid juke he didn't need to do because he's a stupid idiot. Yeah, 99 handsome rating? No, we're going back in the day. Just like Deshaun Jackson was the one guy with the 100 speed and Ray Lewis was the one guy with the 100 power. The one guy with the 100 handsome is Garoppolo.
All right. Now, if we were to actually put in anything that matters into a quarterback's play,
I would say he controlled the game. He controlled the middle of the field. That was a game where they didn't actually run the ball. They ran it efficiently, but nobody took over. Nobody quite matched what they needed to. I believe Mitchell ran for 6 yards a carry. C-Mac ran for 5.5 yards a carry. Deebo Samuel ran I want to say like 10 yards a carry, but nobody took over the game and it wasn't under control. I think Garoppolo, and he doesn't often do this, despite my crowing for him, actually controlled a lot of that game.
Yeah, and I mean, the 49ers do have a lot of playmakers when it comes down to it. I mean, Brandon Ayuk's having a really good year. George Kittle, I feel like they forget about George Kittle like every 2 weeks. Like every couple weeks, he'll have like a 2-touchdown game or something, go nuts. But he's also prone to those games where he gets 3 catches, 30 yards. But they've got some decent weapons over there, and they just always seem to play ball at the right time and seem to be one of those teams you don't want to play in the playoffs. It's just like with their defense and running game, it stinks that they have to have somebody so unreliable as Garoppolo at the helm there, because it's like they're always playing good football at this point in time, and then you just know that Jimmy's going to run out of steam.
Billy, you've eaten Taco Bell 10 times in your life, correct?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'll bet you pooped the same percentage of times that Jimmy G has won, baby, and you would never say that Taco Bell is not consistent, would you?
I don't even know what's going on with you tonight.
My point is, if something happens 7 out of 10 times, to say it's not reliable, it's just not true.
I just feel like there's a lot of quarterbacks.
Guys who could do it, but there's not any guys that do it. So you can speculate and I can speculate, but at the end of the day, he's got the record he has. He's been.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan Tannehill wins a good clip of his games. Are you putting him at the top of the? Are you ready to talk about how handsome he is for a couple segments? I mean, it's
first of all, Ryan Tannehill is not handsome. Second of all, Ryan Tannehill was a terrible quarterback when he was in Miami. He's been a decent quarterback outside of one 17-game stretch, which spanned over 2 seasons, the second half of one and the first half of another, where he out-dueled Mahomes for a 17-game stretch, and everybody who plays fantasy and all these pundits were like, look at the different scheme, and Vrabel coaching him up, and no, he was a bad quarterback who became a decent quarterback, and now he's already losing his job. If we look at Ryan Tannehill's career winning percentage, it's probably something like 55. Maybe something closer to 50. It's not 70. Handsome or not handsome, he's not out there winning 70% of his games.
Yeah. I just got to keep it moving because I don't want to hear you talk about how handsome Jimmy Garoppolo is anymore. Let's go on to the Broncos and Raiders. I mean, you talked about a quarterback that was, decent and turned into a good one. What about a decent one who's turned into a bad one? I mean, Russell Wilson, that guy is absolutely sucking this year. And Nathaniel Hackett apparently gave up some play calling duties, but that didn't really help them a whole lot. I mean, that is just kind of like a match of the coaches who could outcoach each other. You saw Devontae Adams scored that touchdown, wide open, that touchdown to win that game. And it's just like Nathaniel Hackett. I have never seen a coach that's so overmatched this early in his career, except for maybe the last Broncos coach, Josh McDaniels, his first time there.
Josh McDaniels made the playoffs his first time there, didn't he?
I think he started out like 6-0 and then like didn't really win another game the rest of the year or something like that.
Right, and he traded B. Marsh. Yeah, look. The thing with McDaniels his first go around was he did what the Patriots coaches try to do. He tried to be Bill Belichick. Never gonna work. He also tried to videotape signals. He tried to really be Bill Belichick. Didn't work. His problem now, because he has adjusted. And we mentioned this last week, so I don't want to completely cover old things, but he has a good offensive coordinator. He has a good defensive coordinator. It did truly seem like he was going to focus on game management, the clock, just being a head coach. He has not been good to this point. They have far too much talent on his side of the ball to be not productive.
Yeah. No, I mean, they totally do. I know there's been Darren Waller hasn't been there for parts of the year. Hunter Renfrow hasn't been there for parts of the year. But I mean, Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs are easily top 5 at those skill positions. As far as a top 5 running back, top 5 wide receiver, they have it. And you felt like when they had Carr putting up these type of stats, just barely getting into the playoffs last year, you figured they're getting McDaniels, they're adding Devontae Adams. It should be obvious that this offense scores over 30 points a game, and they just haven't.
I think, look, I would love to say it's Hunter Renfrow related because I might be his biggest fan. But he's not been very productive when he's been out there either. Something just there's a what was the tape? There's a turd in the punch bowl. There's a fly in the ointment. Something doesn't quite smell right in that organization, and it's probably McDaniels. But there's just no way you have that much talent and you're this bad. That defense has been atrocious, and they have guys that can get to the passer. So imagine how bad their defensive backs are that they're still getting toasted. And I want to talk about the other side because I've only pooped on the Raiders. And if we're doing a freaking pie chart, there is so much blame to go around. It would be silly of me to not throw it in other places. Russell Wilson, loser. Went from being a winning player to an absolute nothing. A peon, a nobody. His stats are bad. His body language is bad. His post-game press conferences are bad. His Broncos less ride is all-time bad. He has been a flaming disappointment. But that goes without saying. So I don't really want to keep talking about it. Nathaniel Hackett, so far out of his depth, it's amazing. Nathaniel Hackett doesn't look like he knows how to do anything. This is starting to be like Adam Gase, where he had one season with Peyton Manning and then just kept getting jobs because of it. Nathaniel Hackett shouldn't be anywhere near an NFL franchise as anything. That team doesn't look like they know their ass from their elbow. At least the Raiders know they're disappointed and they're crying during post-game conferences. The Broncos look like they live in a fantasy world where they're going to turn it around next week, despite no indications of that.
Yeah, and after each, I mean, it's just amazing how tone deaf Russell Wilson is after every terrible game press conference. He's just like, let's ride. Just like his whole thing is just so hokey. Like, we got to, just turn it around. We're a play away. I mean, this guy.
A play away. He has said that after every loss. Tell me, Billy, how often are the Broncos a play away versus 17 plays away?
Yeah, that's the thing that's tough is too. You got to figure, he said that a lot of these games have been close. The fact that they think they're so close, or at least, from his comments, I think that just shows you too. I mean, they're just not in a good spot, but they're still just see, here's the thing. I was not that sold on them being just a quarterback away. I mean, do you really like the pieces around the quarterback are they just a quarterback away if they got the right quarterback, or they were still pieces away? I thought so.
No, they need more on their defense. Look, Javonte Williams not getting hurt would have changed wouldn't have changed the season dramatically, but was no small loss. I like Judy. I like Sutton. I like Hamler. I like Hinton. They should be better than they are. They've got enough. Were they a quarterback away? No, but I got news for you. There's a very good chance that any team in the NFL with any talent is a quarterback and coach away. They chose wrong both.
Man, that was a crazy game. The Chiefs and Chargers game. Sunday night. I mean, you and I were talking about it that, you could just never have too little time on the clock for Patrick Mahomes to still have a chance. And just the chemistry that he has with Travis Kelce, it's incredible. 3 touchdowns there. Travis Kelce with 11 touchdowns on the year. Patrick Mahomes putting together. I mean, he's obviously the number 1 candidate as far as MVP. Probably going to be another MVP season for him through year 5.
Just on pace to set several single season records. Nobody's talking about it because we're already bored of them. We're still talking about Josh Allen. We're still talking about the Chargers and Justin Herbert.
Imagine if Herbert was doing what Mahomes is doing right now. It would be on for an hour a day.
We're already numb to how good Mahomes has been, but I cut you off. Continue. I apologize.
No, go ahead. I mean, I guess I was just saying the Chiefs, it feels like every year they have this type of prowess. Like, they're put up a good record. They're first in the AFC West. Do you think they're poised for a deep run in the playoffs this year? Do you feel like they're as complete as other Chiefs teams we've seen over the last couple of years?
Well, I think 2 things can be true. So my answer to both of your questions is yes and no. I do see a deep playoff run for this team. This is certainly not one of the more complete Chiefs teams we've seen for the last 5-6 years. There is no time.
What if they get Odell?
It really seems like he's going to the Cowboys, and I hope that's not true, but it really overwhelmingly seems like he's going to the Cowboys. That's what it seems like.
That's what it seems like to me too. But I just feel like they would be the dark horse in that one, the Chiefs.
I think he'd better go to the like. If you're him, wouldn't you want 2 rings in 2 years?
That's what I'm kind of thinking about. It's like I went to the Rams and then I could go to the Chiefs. I mean, I feel like the Chiefs with him, they got to be the odds-on favorite.
But they don't need Odell as much as they. You know what would have really helped them? The Miami Dolphins trade. Bradley Chubb would really help this team right now. A definitive pass rusher or shutdown corner would really go a long way into allowing everybody to find their seat on the bus for the Chiefs defense, because they're lacking top end talent this side of Chris Jones. And Tyrann Mathieu, by the end of his time there, wasn't as good of a playmaker, but was every bit a leader and an intangibles person, a glue guy, as the Chiefs currently are lacking. So I think they don't need Odell as much as they need a corner, a pass rusher, just someone who's elite. And again, what does an ace pitcher do in baseball? It makes every other pitcher better because their role is now defined. It would benefit the Chiefs to have a stud on defense that they don't have right now outside of Chris Jones.
Yeah, I don't know if it was my internet that was crappy, but I kind of missed some of what you said there, but we won't spend a lot of time on that. Let's just go on to Darrelle Revis was named one of the Hall of Fame class of 2023 inductees. There's a lot of good people. I feel like, so first off, I mean, first question is he a first ballot Hall of Famer?
I don't know how he's not. I don't know how you vote in any sport that Darrelle Revis is not a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Is the connection bad?
Not for me. Am I shaking for you? Am I lost in your video?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
What I said was Darrelle Revis
but maybe it's me. Okay. So other first-time eligible players on that list were like Joe Thomas, Dwight Freeney, James Harrison. I mean, this is a really decorated class. Is it 5 guys that they've got this limited to?
Correct.
Yeah, I don't know. So I don't know. I think my connection is really bad. But yeah, so I guess, out of the other guys that are going to make up that class, who are your other favorites to make the Hall this year?
I don't know how Woodson's not in, so we're gonna lean off with Woodson. I don't understand how some of these guys aren't in. I want every player from the great. If Kurt Warner gets in, every player from that Greatest Show on Turf offense should be in, no question. I know Vermeil got in last year. Mike Martz will never get in, but if you're on that Rams team, you deserve to be in. I have no idea why Woodson is not in already. Guys like Wilfork and Harrison, while I love them, they're probably just not good enough. But Darrelle Revis is first ballot. There's no question about it. Joe Thomas is like he's no ballot. He's a no ballot Hall of Famer. If you dropped aliens down to earth and made them watch 3 snaps of football and they saw Joe Thomas versus other left tackles, they would know he's a Hall of Famer.
I agree with that. I mean, Joe Thomas was
that first step hike, that double step back was amazing. And then this man was just a wall of a man. Also, hats off to him and Nick Mangold, who retired and then said, screw this. I'm losing 250 pounds because I no longer need to be this big a human.
Yeah, Nick Mangold's sister still hasn't taken that cue, but
that was funny, but terribly inappropriate. That was very good. It just wasn't nice.
Yeah, well, We try to be net. We're working on being thankful this week. One thing at a time. We'll do thankful this week. We'll get to nice next week.
I'm incredibly thankful. There's other people on this list I wanted to cover. I think this is, and again, and I know we already talked about this. I just think to have only 5 when you've had the last 15 years in the league that you've had, you're letting guys not make it that really deserve to make it. And I just don't know. And again, last year, only 5 get in, right? Last year, a coach got in. Did a coach deserve to be in there more than Robert Mathis? I don't know that. I don't think that. But here's Rondé Barber.
Yeah,
Should be in. Rondé Barber should be in. Devin Hester is one of the few players who's unilaterally the best at what he did ever. So in theory, he should be first ballot. But when he's stacking up against Torrey Holt, Andre Johnson, Darrell Revis, Zach Thomas, Joe Thomas, DeMarcus Ware, Reggie Wayne, Patrick Willis, Devin Hester never's getting in if I'm voting because there's so many guys better than him.
Hey man, that's something that puts him in the Hall of Fame over all else. He basically carried Rex Grossman to a Super Bowl. I mean that
is just missing Briggs, Tillman, Urlacher. That is just missing a lot of other great pieces that also dragged Rex Grossman.
I mean, Devin Hester, I feel like Devin Hester, well, whether it may not be first ballot, I feel like he's definitely got to be a Hall of Famer. Like we talk about closers or positions like that don't matter as much. When you're the most dominant by this far, I mean, it's kind of like game planning for like a Jonathan Taylor, or just the way you have to game plan to make sure that Hester doesn't get the ball. Definitely one of the most feared guys in football. I feel like Hester is definitely a Hall of Famer. I remember when he retired that there was some thought that maybe not, but if you're one of the best that's that dominant for that long, you've got to be in the Hall of Fame.
The only 3 exclusively special teams players that I think absolutely deserve to be in: Morton Anderson, he's already in, retired as the all-time points leader. Adam Vinatieri, because come on now. And then it's this guy. It's Devin Hester. But as I said,
if Matthew Slater off the list.
And once again, the Patriots fan base is the most insufferable in all of sports. I can't stand us. But Devin Hester he's by far and away the best return man ever. But I just named you 7 guys that had way more impact on the game of football than Devin Hester. So I don't know how he's first ballot or second ballot, but he should get in.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I think you had mentioned DeMarcus Ware was one of the names that you had said. I mean, Steve Smith is another guy that's going to be on there. Torrey Holt has been on there 7 straight years. So guess he falls into the category of guys from The Greatest Show on Turf that you want in there. Jared Allen. I mean, Jared Allen was a beast.
I can't believe Jared Allen's not already in. Jared Allen was good in his latter 30s. Jared Allen was good his whole career. And I believe he's top 7 all time in sacks?
Yeah, and I feel like that guy was 14 and a half sacks every year.
Jared Allen.
You think it's that he didn't play for a great team? I mean, he never was on a team that was really good.
I can't call why, because I don't have a lot of respect for Hall of Fame voters in any sport.
4-time All-Pro, led the NFL in sacks twice.
He should be in. It's not even close to me.
4 safeties that ties him for a record all time.
There's no. Well, look at the defensive ends that he's going up against. Dwight Freeney. I think I'd rather have Freeney. Jared Allen's got the better numbers. You got other ends. Robert Mathis. You'd rather have Jared Allen? No question. All right. DeMarcus Ware, who played some defensive end towards the end, mainly a linebacker. You'd take DeMarcus Ware, but Jared Allen has more sacks. So again, Jared Allen not being in is laughable. There's nothing keeping him off the list except for angry, curmudgeon-y Hall of Fame voters, and every sport's got him.
And we were talking about this before the show, that you were talking about how Andre Johnson would be down on this list. I'm looking at a list right now that's got guys ranked. Andre Johnson's 12th. I mean, think about how dominant Andre Johnson was, and he's 12th in this class. Richard Seymour is listed as 13th.
Seymour's not in. I think Seymour, Wilfork, Warner, who ended up getting in, these are Hall of Very Good guys. These are not Hall of Famers. I don't care what the voters say. These are Hall of Very Good.
You don't think Seymour's a Hall of Famer?
Hall of Very Good. Hall of Fame talent. You have to have the talent, the eye test, and the production.
Yeah, I feel like he never quite had the production because he was always double teamed.
He had a couple good years in Oakland, but he never combined a 15 sack season with a Super Bowl run. He's got years where he won and years where he had a lot of production. And like, I suppose that'll work for you, but Richard Seymour he wasn't dominant long enough. And I try to be, if I'm trying to like make it concise, you've got to be top 3 at your position for 3 years, top 5 at your position for 5 years, or top 1 at your position for 2 years before I even start to think about you. Because that's how small
these guys that can get lost as far as I'm concerned. Eddie George, I feel like that guy was overrated.
As hell.
That guy always had a 3-point-something yard per carry. Like, I don't know. I feel like that guy was just somebody that always got carries for some reason. But, like, I don't know. I never thought Eddie George was like a dominant. I mean, he put up some numbers some years, but I feel like you were force-feeding him 350 carries a year.
James Harrison, Hall of Famer, Hall of Very Gooder.
See, James Harrison would be a Hall of Famer for me.
I got him in the Hall of Very Good. You got a big haul, man. I got to be honest. If I'm a pro athlete, I want Billy Allen to have a vote. If I'm a pro athlete.
That is so not true. Like, if you were to see some of the fights I've had with some of my, but like, I don't think that T-Mac should be a Hall of Famer. But I guess in this list, no, I mean, Seymour. So to go back on the Seymour, he probably doesn't have the production of somebody, but it's more like when you see that this guy was like double teamed like every time in a crucial part. I feel like, maybe off the page, he probably had a bigger impact. Like maybe you don't want somebody like Seymour to typically probably get into your hall, but I guess I would kind of have him just in the hall.
Seymour was Seymour as long as McGinnis was McGinnis. Seymour should be in. He wasn't. He wasn't that good for long. He was good. I mean, how long?
I guess as far as Kurt Warner too, I mean, I could do with him staying out, but it's like the fact that he had those runs at the end, that really helped him. I feel like that really helped.
Continue to say what I say. He has only ever been a Hall of Fame looking talent when he's had Hall of Fame talent around him. He never made it out of training camp for the longest. Okay. He finally made it out of training camp, got to a real team, had Hall of Fame talent around him, MVP, Super Bowl, gets to a Super Bowl, goes to New York and can't spell cat. Okay. Because they don't have a roster around him, goes to Arizona and is bad until Larry Fitzgerald goes and Larry Fitzgerald's.
Larry Fitzgerald was there the whole time that he was there, though.
So why was he bad for some of those years? That's my point. He's only good when Hall of Fame talent is at their very best around him. I'm sorry, Billy. You have a 40% chance of winning a Super Bowl with Kurt Warner and Torrey Holt and Isaac Bruce and Orlando Pace. Like, are you effing serious? If you have that level of talent around you, you're going to look really effing good, no matter what. Kurt Warner is one of the best stories ever in the NFL, so I don't want to like begrudge the man. I think he's great. But for me, he's the guy that opened the doors for the real Hall of Famers. He's not just a Hall of Very Gooder, he is an MVP of the Hall of Very Good. So he gets to open the door to the real Hall for all those guys.
Well, how nice of him to do such good work in the community and get these guys to the Hall of Fame. Let's see. Let's go to the NBA for a minute. I mean, we were talking about who's your.
Look, I got Embiid and I got him hard. I think this is one of the first times in his career where he has. I mean, I don't know Joel Embiid, so let me tell you that there's a lot of speculation here. It's the first time it appears as though he has said, F this, just give me the ball and let me take over. And that's on both sides of the floor. He has been a nightmare blocking shots. He has been a load on offense. I have one problem still with Embiid, despite him being my MVP. He falls an awful lot still. Like if you ever play 2K, they have this crash rating, which is your likelihood of falling when there's contact around you. Joel Embiid just kind of falls, even if he's a smaller man in a bump. He's like, oh, I've been contacted. Let me try my best James Harden. No. You need to drop step and dunk on 90% of the league.
Now, is any part of this to do with the fact that he was robbed incredibly last year, Joel Embiid?
For me, no. For the voters, I think that's no small thing. The voters really, they get voters fatigue. They buy into narratives, like who's the best player on the most winning team, even if they're not the most valuable. I think T-Mac actually deserves an MVP in his career. Because if you take T-Mac off that team that made the playoffs, they win like 12 games. Versus the guy who won it, if you take Tim Duncan off of that Spurs team, they probably don't win a championship. But Popovich and Bowen and Manu and Tony, they're going to win 48 games. So I just think the voters have a history of buying into so many narratives. Oh, Kobe doesn't deserve it. Even though his second best player is Smush freaking Parker. The idea that these voters, again, I'm sorry, but these curmudgeon-y, they have weird rules. Ken Griffey can't be unanimous because Babe Ruth wasn't unanimous. And Steve Nash is a 2-time back-to-back MVP. Laughable. Jokic is a 2-time back-to-back MVP. Robbing Embiid. Laughable. Some of these votes have always come down to nonsense. And that's why if my takes might sometimes be nonsense, but I'd rather my informed nonsense versus some of these old, angry, bitter, their biases.
Well, that's we are informed nonsense, you know. Whitey had said this. I didn't get this up fast enough. James Harden's defensive MVP, 5 Pro Bowls, 4 All-Pros, top 10 in forced fumbles. See, he disagrees with you on that. Give me your reasoning behind the fact that you don't want James Harrison in the Hall of Fame, because I feel like he's a Hall of Famer. He didn't have the longevity that you might want, but he had the production.
He didn't have longevity, and he was never the best player on his own defense, which I think should hurt you for the Hall of Fame. If
James Harrison was never the best player on that defense?
No. Early in his career, Porter was better. Later in his career, Polamalu was better. James Harrison was never the best player.
Joey Porter was not better than James Harrison.
Joey Porter was a Pro Bowler when James Harrison was getting cut still. Let's not have a revisionist history. James Harrison took a while to catch on, had a very almost LT JJ Watt-like prime, and then a decent being older level of his career. All of those Pro Bowls and All Pros came in a very abbreviated window. The man played for like 13 years. It's like when people say Jordan is 6-0. The man played 14 years. Did he play 6 years or 14? James Harrison played a long, long time and was really only a dominant player for half of it. To me, you can't be like, I think Terrell Davis deserves it way more than James Harrison. Because what we saw from TD was he was his best every year. I've seen James Harrison for more than half his career be average or cut. That man was cut from 14
3 years.
Yes. And he was a top 2 player at his position all 3 years. James Harrison, I don't think, was ever the best linebacker in the game. Ever. At any year.
What about that year that he had? There was that year that he had like 16 sacks and almost had like 100 tackles or something like that too, didn't he?
I believe he got a defensive player of the year.
Look, he wasn't amazing for a long time, but he was definitely amazing for a couple of years there. Like,
yes. For a handful of years, he was him. He was that damn good.
Look, I guess I could see why you'd be okay without him being in the Hall, but to say that you could see the Terrell Davis over him, I don't.
He won a defensive.
MVP.
Let's calm the F down. This is the problem with those voters. That used to be called Defensive Player of the Year, and is now called Defensive MVP. And that is why you get to say something like this. No, he did not win an MVP. LT won an MVP. James Harrison won a Defensive Player of the Year in the AFC. Like, Again, if he played 5 years with 4 All-Pros, 2 rings, Defensive Player of the Year, he had all those things in 5 years, and that's all he played, Hall of Famer first ballot, no question. He had 5 years of productivity in a what, 12-year career, 13-year career? So he was dominant for less than half his career? No, I don't think you're a Hall of Famer. You're a Hall of Very Gooder.
So he gets punished for hanging on till 36. So he should have just stopped playing football after that Super Bowl, and he would be better in your eyes.
Yes, if your desire is to keep playing football, you're still going to make plays. If your desire is the Hall of Fame, then years of being less productive than your prime self should shape my narrative of how I view your career and your dominance.
I love how we just tossed aside the NBA to jump back into this.
Because it's not real. It's not real.
Look, you would have me if you said that, like you weren't okay with the Terrell Davis, but to say that Terrell Davis basically is higher than that because he just could never play again. So you're basically saying that if James Harrison had that 5-year thing, then got injured and could never play again, you'd look at him better than if he hung around and was still serviceable later in his career. I just don't get
it. Hold on. Have you ever seen Terrell Davis play a full season in the NFL and not be a top running back? Have you ever seen it though? No, you haven't.
No. But it was 3 seasons though. 3 that he was
Super Bowls and a Super Bowl MVP and leading the league in rushing. If you're only going to play 3 years, hot damn, you might as well have that type of resume. Are you kidding me? That guy's in, no question. I think Bo Jackson should be in. And I think Kurt Warner shouldn't be in.
Yeah, so call mine big, but call yours just there's no sense around yours.
No, there's plenty of sense. I gave you a small little rubric. You got to be top 5 at your position for 5 years, top 3 at your position for 3 years, top 2 for at least 2 years. And then can you stack playoff success and those sorts of team accolades, individual accolades. But just in terms of you've got to be at the top. James Harrison was, again, never the best linebacker in the league. Kurt Warner was never the best quarterback in the league. So I'm sorry, you're not in. Terrell Davis was the best running back in the league.
Who was better than Kurt Warner when he won those Super Bowls?
Who was better than Kurt Warner when he won the Super Bowls?
Who was better? What quarterback
was top 5 for 5 years? Yes, but he played twice the amount of years. I didn't say he shouldn't be considered, but much like look,
you're doing the math. He gets penalized for hanging on after those 5 great years. Basically, he should have
just hold on, just so we're clear and we can be objective. Do you view JJ Watt the same way today than you did in Houston? Because he's gotten more sacks since he's been to other teams, but you don't view him the same player at all. So don't put this on me. That's real life.
I'm not going to take him out of the Hall of Fame though, because he didn't get 20 sacks the last couple of years. I still can remember.
Sure, but there was a time in your life where that wasn't a question, and now is he a first ballot Hall of Famer? Is a question. That's because he hung on and was so less than his prime.
Yeah, but we're talking about Hall of Fame or not with James Harrison. We're not talking about first ballot Hall of Fame, aren't we?
I just think he's if Kurt Warner's opening a door, I think James Harrison should be opening the other door. I also don't think he was a top 5 linebacker for 5 years. I think he was a top 5 linebacker for about 2 or 3. I think he was a very, 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 very good linebacker for about 5 years.
Okay.
But and again, the 4 All-Pros is what's making this hard to even have this stance, because 4 All-Pros is really, really hard for a linebacker to get. That's no small thing. That combined with rings should usually mean you're in. I saw James Harrison,
but in this special case where he hung on, where he was still effective late in his career, he gets a minus from Frank.
You want the truth? I also knocked points off him for ending the rational side of Antonio Brown's brain. I just feel him and Perfect were dirty little players, and I just never quite forgave either one of them. Now, one is better, obviously. We're not up here talking about Perfect, but James Harrison was dirty. A lot of those productive years were done doing dirty things, and I'm sorry, Matthew. I hate the Steelers, and that's part of it.
And so why does Harrison get penalized for the Antonio Brown stuff? Because he taught Burflick to play dirty? I mean, I don't even
Because
get...
he inspired a league of under-talented, over-try-hard at linebacker.
Yes, so he inspired Burflick to hit him. Okay.
Yes, he inspired Burfict to hurt Antonio Brown, and Troy Polamalu was the best player on that defense. Like, it was never James Harrison. That record-breaking interception had 3 block in the backs that weren't called. Yes, it was amazing, but I've always not forgiven the league because they were so wowed by the moment that they missed like blatant things on camera during that return. But I love that play. That play is amazing.
There's a block in the back during the Pats run back this weekend too. But I mean, they were so excited. The refs were so excited. The refs were so excited to end that game though that they just blew the whistle.
Bro, I love James Harrison, so don't get me wrong. I just don't think he's a Hall of Famer.
So you love him. It's hard for linebackers to make 4 All-Pros. Had the most memorable. All these reasons why someone should make the Hall of Fame, but in this special case, he just doesn't add up. Okay. Well, that's gonna do it for us here. Open season. We are thankful for James Harrison's Hall of Fame candidacy, and God, hopefully he makes it just so that we can have some more spirited debates. We appreciate everybody for tuning in with us. Have a great Thanksgiving. Eat seconds for us. We'll catch you next week, same time, same place. Maybe the Lions will be sitting here on a 4-game heater, Frankie. I don't think it's too likely. But thanks for tuning in with us this week, and we will catch you next week, same time.
Better
same
for the show if they do. Better for the show if the Dolphins do, or if the Lions do win.
Oh, we'll be starting out with a heaping of Lions talk if that's the case. We'll talk to you then.